because I really want to.
Okay.
I really want to give Travis some juice.
So if you think you're in a noisy area, then you may want to mute yourself. But I'm not going to mute anybody unless it's necessary, at least for this part. And then maybe in the Satsang I will. I'll mute myself.
All right. So just to do a little backstory, I know it's the past and all of that sort of stuff, but this week I've had, Vinka, hey, there's Vinka. This week I've had people writing to me like almost every day about Russia, Ukraine and everything. And my general advice is do your workbook lesson, you know, and if you're not doing the course, if you're not reading A Course in Miracles and actually doing the lessons, then it's pretty well pointless. It's not totally pointless, but it's pretty well pointless me trying to advise you on anything or give you any kind of clear direction, because the whole purpose of seeking your own internal teacher is to save time. And the greatest save of time that I could possibly ever offer you is actually to get yourself a copy of the course, start reading it and doing those workbook lessons for yourself. I mean, if you're listening to me and listening to other teachers, there's heaps of course teachers online that you may like, some you may gel with more than others. That's great. But you should be aware that an external teacher, such as I seem to be, appear to be within the fabric of the matrix or the dream, whatever, should only be a temporary expedient, okay? Not something to be depended on as a long-term kind of thing. My job is to make myself redundant to you by giving you as much of my own learning as I possibly can, so that you can get to that level where I'm at in my own understanding of my self integrated into the world as an idea of teacher, healer, student, and all that sort of thing. And then hopefully you'll go beyond that and be able to take me with you, right? So it's all a frequency. It's all a raising up. It doesn't matter when we're climbing this great ladder. We all are climbing that ladder together, but it's like Helen Schuckman's, if you've ever seen the story of A Course in Miracles, where Glynis John, because Helen's just passed, and Glynis John is reading from Helen's notes, and Helen said that she got the sense that we're all going happily along this path together, some in the front, some in the back, but we're all on that path. Some are going faster than others and whatever. So what happens in this is you'll be struggling at the beginning, okay, with the course. You'll be struggling because your old thought system is like virtually complete and it's heavy on the scales, and you're looking to investigate a new thought system, but the mind is constantly deferring to the old one as a way of referencing, which you cannot do successfully in this, because it's always going to be through a leap of faith that you make any kind of progress, not through a leap of, let me look into my own thinking and see if there's an answer there, because there isn't. Otherwise you would have found it already and you wouldn't need A Course in Miracles. Does that make sense? So what's helpful then in doing the lessons, when you realize, and I can only speak it from my own experience of having done the workbook and everything like that, when you realize that those reviews, those first 50 lesson reviews, and I put up a post about this earlier this week, encapsulate the entirety of the thought system of the course, right? You can read that in an hour, or we call it the 20-minute book, but it's about 40 minutes to an hour. You can read that in an hour and gain, albeit maybe a fragile grasp of, but you can gain intellectually and conceptually an all-encompassing view of the entire spiritual parameter of your transformation. Okay. Now, if you were to grow up, let's say in India or something like that, where, and actually I think the course is available in India now, but they have a long history, and I'm only using, I mean, there's many Asian countries as well, and other countries, but in India, they have a long history of handing down information through sitting with a guru or another teacher, and they have the Upanishads there, and there's like, I think there's 12 Gitas and Vedas and whatever. There's a ton of books. And by the time you were to get through them, process what they mean in relativity to your own experience of yourself. You know, like the idea, I think, in general was that maybe in 16 lifetimes you can reach enlightenment. It's kind of ridiculous, you know, but now, because consciousness has raised up enough that we're able to wrap our heads around the idea presented through this course, we've nutshelled that down to a 1-year curriculum, right? It doesn't take 1 year, it takes the rest of your life. It takes everything, because once you begin on that journey is what you are. That journey is your purpose, your living, your being, and everything. But the first year, 2 years, 3 years, perhaps, you're going to be involved heavily with the concepts. And initially you'll be battling that ego voice that tries to tell you, I'll never get this, or this is too hard, or what does he mean by that? And looking into your own thinking to try and find solutions. Okay. So if you can get it right up front, there are no solutions in your own thinking, right? You will take it on board more readily then, that you're going to have to be miracle minded about this whole process. Okay. The whole thing from start to finish. And there's not really a finish. It's like, I don't know, I need a miracle. I'm just going to let it be miraculous. I have no clue what this means, but Jesus knows what it means. So I'm just going to trust that him knowing what it means is good enough for me. And then when it's time for me to actually be in a position where my mental faculty has sort of like risen up enough that the orchestration of my own transformation can reveal to me actually what it means, that'll be fine. Okay. Because some of us are, you know, not far off wielding a club, and some of us are almost growing wings. But together we join in this collaborative venture and we raise each other up. And every single one of us is both the teacher and the learner, whether you're wielding the club going, or whether you're, you know, learning how to flap those wings, right? There's no one more important or less important than any other. But that's where the tolerance, the patience, and all of those sorts of things come in, the compassion and everything else, in the realization that we're all each at where we're at in this. But Jesus has given us these lessons to show us, at least conceptually initially, what the truth of our situation is and what the truth of ourself is, right? And offering us an experience to back that up. So, and like I've said it before, I say it many times, but the process of your enlightenment or your transformation, your salvation, whatever you want to refer to it as, is two parts. The experience, which is not of you, it's of God. It's the divine, the revelatory part, and the mind training, which simply requires your willingness that it occur. Okay. Now, I'm on a lot of pages. I'm on a lot of, and I couldn't tell you which ones are what, because every day people send me, please join this page, and invites. I guess you guys get them as well, but someone invites you to join a page. And oh, and for the record, if they're a private page, I refuse to join. Like everything I do is completely open and without limitation. So the idea of privacy is pointless. I don't believe in it. It's like having a boundary, or for some strange reason, you know, maybe someone's not ready to hear that there is no world. It's like, well, however you hear it, you hear it. And what you do with that, you do with that. But it's not up to me to decide who's ready and who's not. So I'm just here representing there is no world. God is a fact. You're whole and perfect, and there's nothing you can do about that, despite your best attempts to sabotage yourself and die again and again and again, and, you know, never prove to yourself that you're actually dead, because you have to come back to, where's my tombstone? It's got to be here somewhere, you know. So being able then to join, like we are in this Zoom meeting, with these lessons, it doesn't matter whether you're wielding a club or growing wings. These lessons are completely applicable and relevant to you on the level that Jesus needs you to be at. Okay? And that's it. What he says is good enough for you is good enough for you. I have people tell me, oh, I did the course years ago and now I've gone well beyond it. And it's like, well, I have no clue what that even means. I did it years ago too, and I've gone well beyond it as well. I don't need it as a reference anymore. I never pick it up and read anything in it. But I know that having read it perfectly and having had the experience it offers, there's nothing beyond it. You know, and at the point where I'd reached that what would you call it, pinnacle of maturity in my own mind regarding my own innocence and the acceptance of it, and releasing all my guilt and everything, I heard Jesus speak to me directly while I was sitting in the meditation room one day and said, Dave, you're done. And then immediately as he said that, Ted, who was teaching at that time on that day, stopped everything he was saying and talking about, looked over to me and said, Dave, you're done. Exactly the same, like 2 seconds later. And I said to him, I just heard Jesus tell me that. And in that moment, I didn't really know what Dave, you're done meant, but I trusted that if Jesus says I'm done, I'm done. You know, I'd fulfilled what it was that was my requirement in the atonement, which was to accept salvation for myself. You know, how that occurred and how that came about, I don't know, because I'm a goddamn idiot. I'll tell you, I'm like, if I had a pointy hat, it would fit my head better than this. Like, I'm the dunce. If we're all on that path together, I'm at the back. I'm the guy with the club, and I'm the one that's going to turn out the light on the way out. So, you know, but luckily God makes his sun to shine upon the sinner and the saint, and somewhere there is me, and you know, I'm just happy to be included. What's that saying? It's better to be a street sweeper in heaven than a ruler in hell. So I've got my broom. So these little lessons, I want to focus on the first 10. And also, before we do that, I just want to talk about, because you guys in America are having a time change. And I think that's tomorrow. Does that sound right? Tomorrow, a time change. So you guys are going to be ahead an hour, so it'll be later for you by an hour. So what we're going to do we're going to keep this one going. So everybody on the West Coast, West Coast, will be at a regular time with this. But everybody on the East Coast, we're doing another Zoom in the morning for Anthea, wherever she is, and her crew. And you'll be able to join in with that one, because it'll be like early in the morning. So that'll be like mid-afternoon your time or something like that. It'll probably work out easier, but look at it. I mean, if you have any questions about that, you can either contact Anthea, who's here somewhere in this meeting, or Tina, who's the facilitator of this meeting, and they'll give you the info. And I actually think it's in the messenger. I think it's in there. So, but if it gets too late for you guys, like, I am not a night owl. 8:30 usually I'm in bed, you know. But if it gets too late for you guys, just let us know, and we'll try to work something else out, so that it's sort of like, because there's nothing worse than trying to stay awake and having an interest in something and be like, and I can see you guys, you're all sitting there going, you know, like, by the time we get.
Yeah, I think Donna wants to say something. You want to say something, Donna? You got your hand.
Go ahead. Where is she? Hang on, I'm going to scroll.
Sorry.
Go for it.
No, you're good? You're good? Okay.
Hey.
So I can say really quick, it's the meeting with Anthea, just perfect. It's going to be Saturdays for us in the States, 1 p.m. PST and 3 p.m. EST. So it's kind of a really good time for us here. So if you can't hang with me, because I can't do that one, then holla at your girl Anthea for the Saturday meeting.
Yeah.
That's it.
All right, that's it. So let's do these first 10 lessons. Open your books up, and I just want to read it. Where are we? All right, so the first one is nothing I see means anything. All right. Now we could just do this by the headings if you like. Okay. Nothing I see means anything. The first thing that pops into mind is, what does that mean? Okay. So literally, it means what it means. If you don't understand what it means, that's perfectly okay. Don't try to work out what it means with your pointy little brain. okay, because it was 10 months of me reading these reviews every day before I got lesson 1. Okay, and I'll just give you that. I'll give you the story of that just quickly, because somebody wrote to me this week and said, "Can you please tell us some funny stories and things and anecdotes and whatever?" So here's one for this lesson. I'd been attending the Healing Center for about, I don't know, almost a year. Okay, at this time, and after session in the morning, we would do session and meditation and everything. There would be a lunch put on, and community lunch. And there was a big courtyard out the back where everyone would sit under this big fig tree and just chit chat about whatever went on in the meeting that day in the session. And I was inside looking out with my plate, walking out to go under the tree. And 2 of the attendees of that meeting started having a fist fight, right? In the courtyard. This is in a spiritual center. Started having a full-on fisticuffs thing going on, yelling and screaming. And one of my early teachers, Greta, was standing right by the door. And I said, "Well, what does this mean?" Right? I remember using those words. What does this mean? Like I'm looking at what's going on out there. And she said, "It doesn't mean anything." And all of a sudden, bam, the light went on. Right? Now, I had read, and since then that has transferred to absolutely everything. I had read these reviews in the 10, 12 months, whatever it was, every single day. And it never occurred to me that nothing I see means anything was applicable to that situation until the light went on and the penny dropped. Okay. So what happens with this little book is, even though you can read it every day, that doesn't mean you're hearing it, right? Because it's through your own experience of the application of this that it's going to make sense. Even though conceptually we can read this, the reason this is so is that I see nothing and nothing has no meaning. Even though conceptually we can read that and maybe get a grasp of it and go, okay, that sounds okay. This is a spiritual thing. I'll let that in. You know, it's got to get in to the script level. I call it the script level, or the level wherein in your own mind, the background running program of your denial is actually going on. Okay. So what happens with the course is, I've written a story in separation. I can only talk about this singularly, put my finger on my nose. I've written a story called Separation. Okay. Or a script. And Jesus has an alternative script, which is salvation. And that script is written also. I have this story going on. Now, if you can imagine a computer for a second that has, and I'm not sure about nowadays, but the old computers would have like a floppy disk or something going on, right? And which would run the software or the hardware, make it all work, okay? But then there's me at the keyboard that was doing stuff because that disk was running, okay? But I'm only aware in my mind of what I'm doing on the screen, not what's actually going on the disk while I'm doing it. Okay, so when we read these lessons, we're only aware of what's going on out here on the physical frame, and not aware of what's actually occurring in the running program, which is enabling, or seems to be enabling, the manifestation of the illusion of the dream. Okay, so this has to get in. This has to get in deep. It's like Jesus says in the course, this course has to be overlearned to be learned. All right, which is why so many guys that I meet have read it like 50 times, cover to cover, and they're still not confident that they hear it and whatever. And it's like, well, I have no comment about that. I had to read it. I've read it 3 times, cover to cover, and done the workbook twice. But I'm fully aware that there are penny drop moments in this where all of a sudden what it is that you're reading and what it is that seems to be going on out in your world connect as that teaching, learning opportunity, and bam, something connects. And the next thing you know, it's like, holy cow, I've been reading this book for 10 years and I just get it. I just got that lesson number 1. But whatever it takes, it takes. All right. Don't be embarrassed to be a slow learner. We're all slow learners. This is 365 lessons for dummies. A dog knows what it is, and an elephant knows what it is. It's only man doesn't know what it is. All right. So we're all in this same kindergarten, God's kindergarten together. So nothing I see means anything, obviously, because it has no meaning other than that which I have given it, which is lesson 2. Okay. Now, the problem you're going to have with that one is that you're going to look at a news program or a social agenda or something going on where an overwhelming group of people who seem to be, let's say, academic or professionally minded or interested in a certain subject, give an opinion that seems unswayable. And you're going to naturally, because you don't know the meaning of anything, and somewhere in your mind back here, you're looking for meaning, even though you're not really aware that you're looking for the meaning of yourself, capital S, you're going to ascribe a value to that meaning and give it all the meaning that it has for you. Okay. Now, no one ever told you to do that. No one ever told you that you had to believe in what someone else told you, including what I'm telling you, right? Which leaves you in position number 1. I'm the dreamer of my dream, and it's up to me. It's my choice what I choose to believe about absolutely anything. But if nothing I see means anything, and I've only given it the thoughts, the meaning that it has for me, then where does that leave me? It leaves me in this number 1 place where I don't know anything. Okay. Now, that's the place you're going to want to adjust from. That's the place where every second, every millisecond of the day, the ego mind, that part of your mind that's trying to verify the temporal association, is going to want to adjust from and make something real again. Oh, there's a war in Ukraine. I'll make that real. I'll give it a meaning. I'll react to it. I'll buy into it. And then I'll have a spiritual healing about whatever it is that I think it means to me and release it again. It's like, hang on a minute, that's a waste of time. Just don't buy into it in the first place. Stay in your frame of reference as what you truly are as spirit, one with all things, and allow it to be what it is whilst you're the observer, nothing more than anything else going on in the dream. But because there's a whole world out there that's going, this is terrible, this shouldn't be happening, right? The inbuilt kind of system of referral tends to look for witnesses and say, all of these people can't be wrong, that's a bad thing. I'm going to choose that it's a bad thing too, right? And the next thing you know, you're getting the results of that. You're having emotions, you're doing all of this stuff going on, and you don't know what to do with it. And you look for something else so you don't have to focus on how bad that situation is. You're trying to find a better situation, right? Which you also give a meaning to. Okay, so it's like cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. And it's like response, what is it? Stimuli, response, stimuli, response, stimuli, response, until finally you get all the way back and you're exhausted at the end of the day, and you turn the television off and you go like, oh my God, this world's crazy, right? So the whole training, the whole mind training of the course is don't do that. It's simple. Just don't do that, right? Or Jesus would say, do only this, right? Now, the premise, I don't know if it's the premise, but the what is it? Well, I'm looking for a word here, but the perspective anyway, or the mindset, there we go. The mindset that you're being encouraged to adopt, to foster, to take on board through a leap of faith, whatever, through your own hard work and stupidity perhaps, is to keep your mind focused on the kingdom of heaven. Okay? Focus on the kingdom of heaven, which is within you. Now, that'll be your barometer. The kingdom of heaven in this world relates to your state of inner peace. Okay? In this world, a state of perfect peace is what the kingdom of heaven is. It's a singular state. It's not peace sometimes or peace when things are going my way. It's peace all the time. It's a choice that I'm making all the time to be peaceful. Okay? And I'm training my mind that peace is what I want because I've made the decision to be peaceful and I've made the decision for peace. And whatever then seems to draw you out of it, like Russia and Ukraine, or whatever the current topic is, even if it's just something in your own backyard, my avocado tree's dying or something, whatever draws you out of that sense of inner peace is grist for the mill. It's the catalyst for your healing, so that you can apply the principle of forgiveness, divine forgiveness, and we're going to get into that in just about 2 seconds, to restore you to a deeper sense of peace, so that you're not going to be so easily dissuaded by the world the next time it shows up. Does that make sense? But it has to be miraculous. If you're trying to do it in your mind with your thoughts, you're going to be just like, that's like transcendence, not transformation. Buddhism centers heavily on transcendence, and I tried that for many years. You sit and meditate and try to rise above the world and the problems, and then as soon as you finish your meditation, you boom back down here in your conscious level, and everything's the same, right? It's a start, but it's not enough. We're transforming our thinking. We're taking our attack and defense mechanisms, and we're looking at them completely differently from the point of view of where we once would have believed that we were a victim, say, to the point where now we are the author of our victimhood, okay, which gives us automatic power, okay? It restores us. We may not like that, of course, initially, because some of the stuff that we think that occurs to us and to others in the world, it's like it's horrific. And Jesus says delay in time is tragic, right? And it is. I mean, you've got X, Y, Z amount of years to process the particulars of your own transformation, to make as much advantage and increase in the record of the journey of your soul that you can. Okay, remembering that, like if you're reading Helen's stuff, and where Bill and Helen are talking to Jesus privately, and Jesus says to her, "You've been weighed in the balance and found wanting." All right, so that might sound kind of daunting for Jesus to say to you, "Well, look, we've weighed up your progress, and you're falling way behind." But at least that's a kick in the pants, because other than that, you really have no clue how you're going, which is why it is that your own sense of inner peace is so important, that you don't lose sight of it, because it's your barometer how you're going. If you're losing your shit every 5 minutes of the day, as soon as you walk out of the door or put down the course book, then you need help, right? You'll get to the point, however, where you'll be able to process through an entire day in perfect peace and perfect happiness. And no matter what's going on, you'll be like, hey, and I know all of you probably know people like that just nothing seems to faze them. They just seem to be in this kind of in the world, but not of it mindset. And I don't know, it's possible that, you could be living in denial of stuff and just pretending it's not really affecting you when it actually deep down is, and all of these sorts of things. But that doesn't matter to the Holy Spirit, okay? Because it's the Holy Spirit's job to do your healing, not your job. Your job is just to simply give the Holy Spirit what it is that seems to piss you off, what it is that seems to upset you. You're not the healer. You're the vessel that the healer resides in, that will use you and go through you to do whatever is required. And you benefit from that also, because you're one with the whole. Okay. So all that kind of selfish, what about me, becomes a selfless kind of what about us? And then the ball starts to get rolling, and you start to realize that, the course is working in you finally, and you stop struggling with the concepts. Like, I'm learning to trust Jesus here. I'm learning to trust the Holy Spirit, and I'm learning to trust that even though I may not like what it is that I'm being presented with, that it's never anything other than either a blessing or a lesson. Right? And in the beginning, some of the lessons are tough, because you look in that mirror, that reflection of yourself, and some of those reflections are goddamn ugly. They're horrible. I'm not a narcissist. I'm not a gas lamper. I'm not a bloody pervert or a whatever. It's like, yes, you are. You're one with everything. In this world, one with everything. You may not find a reference for it in your immediate incarnation, but if you react to it, it's yours. That's the basic rule. If you react to it, if it triggers you, activates you, whatever, it's your stuff, right? You may not be a murdering, raping, vandalizing, whatever, But that doesn't mean you don't have a reference point for it in your own consciousness that is born of judgment, which is what's keeping you in the temporal association that you find yourself in now, right? And you'll say to me things like, what's a bad one, like a rapist or a murderer? You'll be like, I couldn't possibly be one with that. That's not in my character. It's not in my nature and none of that stuff. But yet it makes up a part of the script in which you find yourself, like in a storybook. The main character may not be the villain, but he's in that book with all the other characters, right? You're atoning for that whole book, not just that one main character's role in it. Right? I'm one with everything. I'm one with every character. I wrote the story. It was a dumb story, and now I'm going to allow God to heal it. I've got halfway through the plot and realized that everyone's lost the plot, and you know, I need something else to happen here that's not of my own making because I'm a crap writer. Does that make sense? Any questions? So, oh, Tina, you can probably see everyone on the screen. If anyone raises a hand, just let Tina know. All right, so I do not understand what I see is lesson number 3, okay? And this follows much along from lesson 2. Of course you don't understand what you see because it's not understandable, because it's not what reality is, but we're accustomed to it. We take it for granted day by day. I've had 10,000 apples in my lifetime that I've eaten. I don't even stop to think what an apple is anymore. Whereas if you gave an apple to the first time for a child, they'd probably, like, you watch the reaction on their face, okay? Where they don't understand it. They don't know, and everything's brand new and miraculous and amazing, okay? I don't understand what I see. How could I understand what I see when I've judged it amiss? Every time. This apple is loaded, and I've eaten half of it. This apple is loaded. Here's another one. This apple is loaded with definition, judgment, and stories about apples that I think I understand. I'm told they're good for my health. One a day keeps the doctor away. They grow on trees. They get worms sometimes. Farmers spray them with stuff. And look, there's a whole world of stuff that I think I understand about apples. But if an apple is an illusion, just as I'm an illusion, what do I really understand about it? You know, really nothing. But my mind is pre-programmed to pigeonhole and define absolutely everything. So when I look at this apple, I don't see the creative reality of it as a living thing. All I see is what it is that I've defined it as in my own thinking. Okay. Now, Jesus says, I think it's in lesson 12, you could easily ask the chair to reveal to you what it is, and it will do so, right? But you don't believe it when you ask the chair, show me what you are, okay? Everything is just light. Everything is made of light, this apple included, right? But because I've already got so many stories about apples, the last thing I'm going to allow myself to see is beyond my stories, because then that's going to leave me in a place where I have to come to that nexus point again, where I'm here and I don't know anything. All right. Now, we do that with every relationship, my relationship with my apple, my relationship with you guys, my relationship with my immediate spouse, my family, my children, my whatever. Okay. We do that with everything. Every time you look at something, right, and you only have to do this once and it's done. But every time we look at something, we're using a past reference to decide what it is we think it is, and all of that sort of stuff. And all the stories that we've got, like our synapses in our brain, even fire together to correlate all the stories about apples so that we know it's safe to eat and whatever. But every time we do that, we're denying, right, and it's a conscious choice, we're denying the miraculous nature of allowing this apple to be revealed to us as what it actually is, as pure light. Does that make sense? So, and I have a little story. I think I've told you guys before, maybe. I know I've told this story a lot of times, but we did a massive meditation, a massive session one day, went for like 6 hours. And afterwards, everybody was fried. Everyone was completely fried, just like can't walk, can't talk, can't do anything. And after a while, I decided to go into town. This is probably about maybe 3 months after my enlightenment. And I'm walking up the main street, Johnson Street in Byron Bay. And I'm on a high. I'm on a total natural, beautiful self high. And I'm walking up all these little gift shops, past all these things up towards the beach, go and watch the guys surfing, you know. And there's like 50, 100 tourists all walking towards me with their little Byron Bay stuff bags and everything. And they're all talking and like just typical, very busy street scene. And my heart just exploded. And I thought to myself, I had this thought, these are all my brothers. And then all of a sudden, they all faded out like a dimmer switch on a wall. They all faded out to this kind of very, very pale, grey, almost translucent, nothing kind of image. And right here in the forehead, in the center of the forehead of everyone, exploded this luminescent, brilliant white, blue-white light. And Jesus showed me in that moment, those bodily forms are not your brothers. These are your brothers. These beings of light that inhabit or animate the form, allow that form to be animated and form the part of the matrix for you. These are your brothers. And it takes a lot because I've given this body all the meaning it has for me. I think it's actually me. You know, it's funny stuff. It's like you got to really get some super glue and stick your finger there and go, no, everything's just me. Everything's me. Like everything is me. Everything is just mind. And I am one with all things, one with mind. You know, I seem to be a separate body entity capable of my own individual decisions and everything else, but it's not true. I'm part of a whole, and one thing affects everything else. It's like the butterfly effect. So these thoughts do not mean anything. Okay. The fourth one, these thoughts do not mean anything. The thoughts of which I am aware do not mean anything because I'm trying to think without God. Right? That should be pretty straightforward. Jesus is telling me I'm trying to think without God. Now, I've met many people in the last 25 years who would dispute that. Christians, religious people from all walks of life and whatever, who would say, no, I'm not trying to think without God. I'm abiding in the Lord and this and that and the other. And it's like, no, even that thought that you're thinking about abiding in the Lord is thinking without God. Right? God doesn't use the symbols of words of conceptual association as a means of communication. Communication, true communication, is seen in light. When we do our light sessions, you'll get to a certain point in your own thing. I don't know if Dean's here. Is Dean on here? Hang on. Where are we? John, I can't see you. Your camera's not on and neither is Sharon's. Can you turn them on, please?
Dean's not here.
Oh, okay. Dean's not here. So Dean's just starting in our meditations that we do here to have direct experiences of light communication in his own mind, right? So we do this thing together in our light sessions, which in one way is different to what we do here on Zoom because of the physical proximity, but is not different because there is no such thing as physical proximity, right? So there's this whole illusion of physical proximity that I have to overcome as, let's say, an idea of a student or a healer and learning to heal my own mind about specific beliefs in time and space. And you guys also have to overcome in your own thing as we enter into our circle of meditation later on, in a willingness to join together in a like-minded communication. Now, in that communication, everything is known by everyone because the only thing to know is what you are. The only thing to know is truth. And that experience of communication of truth, even though it seems to be not of this world, it transfers to everything that you ever will need to be concerned about or would have any concern about whatsoever in the world, in the journey of your soul as whatever's left for you to do here. I don't know if that makes sense, but you get a glimpse of light and it reference points a new orientation in your mind in relationship to everyone and everything. Once you get that light, you can't undo it. You can't go back. Right? even when you're reading these lessons, you're reading this and it's like something is attracting you to want to be on this Zoom page, to doing these lessons, this workbook. You can't explain it. You're just feeling it inside. I need to do this. This is my calling and whatever. And maybe you've had a direct calling and all this sort of stuff. You can't go back. And so that can be kind of scary at first, right? Until you realize, until you have that first little shift. Once you have that first little shift in consciousness, you'll be, holy cow, what was that? I want more of that. And you'll be running around the world, having relationships and doing as much as you can to involve yourself in your own salvation, because that's where it's going to happen. Okay. If you isolate yourself and lock yourself away on a mountaintop or in a cave like a guru or whatever, nothing's going to happen. And I heard this funny story of, it's not funny, it's kind of upsetting really, but a Buddhist nun who spent 12 years in a cave on the side of a cliff in meditation. And when she came out after 12 years, she was interviewed by some local media, I guess, and they asked her what revelations or whatever had occurred for her during her 12 years of meditation. She just said it was very peaceful. She hadn't had any kind of experience whatsoever, because the experience happens when you allow the catalysts, which are the relationships of your life, to actually push your buttons, not by running away from it and hiding in a rainforest or whatever. It's like, if you want to learn to meditate, go and sit on the side of a 4-lane highway. Like, I mean that seriously. Go and sit in the noisiest place imaginable. And your mind, it's like in India, so many ashrams and places like that are built in busy inner city kind of places, and they're noisy. It's like you would think they'd be up in the mountains, like in Narrananshala and all of those sorts of places, but no, most of them are in these busy hubbub suburban kind of city dwelling kind of places. They're noisy, and it forces you to focus. It forces you, when Jesus tells you to like block out the world, like just ignore that temporal thinking, it forces you to do that. And one of the greatest meditations I've ever had was sitting on a beach with the family of like rowdy kids beside me, and I was trying to meditate, and there was a whole big empty beach, and for some reason they thought it would be great to sit down next to the guy meditating, and you know, it's like, what the hell, I don't know, but it was divinely given, and it ended up being one of my best meditations ever, because I was so focused to block out those screaming kids. And you know, thank you, Father. So thoughts do not mean anything. I'm never upset for the reason I think. I'm gonna want to try and verify to myself every reason imaginable for why I'm upset. It's what the mind does. I'm going to want to try and validate all my thinking. Okay, my old script is running. That program is in the background. It's running all the time. I'm here on the surface trying to get these little seeds of wisdom or seeds of knowledge from this book to drop in between the cracks and get down into that running program to make changes. Right now, it's not up to me to do that. It's up to the Holy Spirit. But in my willingness to allow it to occur, it can occur. Right, which is why through my guidance, I'm sent. Father, use my feet, use my voice, use my hands, my feet, whatever. Send me where you need me to go. Put me in the place where I need to be. Okay? Because if I'm sitting in a comfort zone, nothing's going to happen. If I'm sitting in a comfortable place where I think everything's hunky-dory, what more can be added? You know? Let me be useful. Let me be out there regardless of whatever concerns of my own body and my own comfort, and realize where it is that I still actually have work to do. You know, so I'm never upset for the reason I think, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to manifest 1,000 reasons to try and want to be upset, because that's what the ego does. Right? The ego's only interest is self-preservation, which is why it's really heavily required that you realize that your thoughts don't mean anything, and to stop depending on them. So all these Facebook pages that I see where people are asking questions, what about this, what about that? And then there's 100 comments from people, all well-meaning ego, trying to offer advice. It's like, don't do that. Don't offer advice. Just at the most, put in there, do your workbook lesson. Are you doing A Course in Miracles? Are you doing the workbook lessons? Do your lesson, because it has to be your experience, not my advice, that gets you out of the predicament you think you're in. Otherwise, you're just going to manifest another predicament with another question in the next 5 minutes, I guarantee it, and be on Facebook again. What about this? What about that? Right? Because you're never upset for the reason you think. And until you have an experience, you're not going to realize that. And you're going to want to validate all the reasons and possibilities of potential that you think are causing you to be upset. And not one of them is ever going to be true. The reason you're upset doesn't exist within the framework of time and space. It's before time was and after time ended. Okay, the physical nature of life that we seem to find ourselves in the dream is the second part of the dream. Okay, it's the second part. The part where I actually believe in my mind that I'm separate from God is outside of or altogether different from the physical part that we find ourselves in now, which is the healing part, the reparative part. All right, there's a bit in the text that it's just like 1 or 2 lines. It's like, I wish Jesus would have talked about it a bit more, but he says something like, the world was made for you as a platform where you could undergo this process, undergo this transformation, right? Before you came to the world and were born, let's say, even though you were never born and can never die, but before you found yourself in the world, you existed still within the belief in separation, but separately from the world, right? Now, if you're a Buddhist, you'll call that the bardo state, or the void if you're a Hindu, perhaps. But mind as pure mind, then becoming embodied in, let's say, the idea of how convincing this is as a physical being, a physical avatar, is never going to be able to realize the reason that it's upset about anything from within the framework. Okay, because the cause, the fall from grace, the idea of separation, the war in heaven, whatever you want to look at that as, didn't occur here on earth. Okay, so stop looking for reasons why you think you're upset here, and like, let your consciousness, let your mind be up. Oh, low battery. Hang on, I've got to plug me in again. I'm going to go sideways here. Oh, let me just stack up a few little books. Stop looking in your own thinking, because it's not in there. Okay, it's not in your own thinking. I might have to get some more little books just for a second. Is that better? No. My phone. I've got this funny little holder for my iPad, and it's on an angle, so it's academically useful, I suppose. Yeah, so the idea or the schism of separation occurred outside of time and space, which is why you can't look in here, you can't validate your own thinking for the particulars of the situation you find yourself in, but yet within the framework of time and space, every relationship that you allow yourself to enter into is going to become useful to you as a way of truing up to your true relationship with yourself or with God, right? To bring about the singular vibration within you of perfect peace, perfect inner peace. Okay, when your state of perfect inner peace becomes stable, becomes something that you no longer need to manage through continually being vigilant for where am I today? This has upset me, that's upset me, and all these sorts of things. When it becomes stable and self-regulating, which it will, then your vibration becomes singular and forms a perfect match with the vibration of the universe or God vibration, and the two things can connect like two magnets clicking together. Does that make sense? Until then, until your vibration is perfect, until your state of inner peace becomes singular, right? You're learning to align to a singular vibration, a singular sense of self, right? Where I'm one with all things. When that occurs, your singular sense of self and the singular sense of self that already exists outside of time and space as the universal God or whatever, universal mind, will automatically connect, and you'll be gone from here. Okay? That will show you then what it is you are and where you are and have been forever, always. Okay, and you'll realize that you were never actually here in the dream at all and aren't here actually now. But that's a bit of a head fuck, you know. You can't, don't try to work that out. Okay, if Jesus tells you there is no world, don't try to work out what he means by that. Just take his word for it that he knows what that means, and that you're in the process of coming to learn for yourself what that actually means, right? But it has to be experiential. Okay, I see only the past, right? I see only the past. As I look about, I condemn the world I look upon. And you might think to yourself, no, I don't condemn the world. I would like to love the world. But the very idea of looking about, the very idea of using the body's eyes is what condemnation is, right? I'm either seeing the Christ or I'm seeing the world. I'm either seeing my brother or as a being of light beyond the physical nature, the stories of the physical nature and everything else, or I'm seeing my own past references for what it is that fundamentally represents the condemnation of my true relationship, right? If I'm condemning anything or one thing at all, I'm condemning the whole lot. If I see one brother as less than deserving of my total love, then I don't see any of other brothers of being worthy of my total love at all either, because it's saying to me that I don't have a clue what total love is, right? I don't understand universal love. I don't understand unconditional love, whilst yet I still use my eyes to try and validate what I think it is that I'm seeing out there, because all that I'm seeing is always over. It's always the past. Okay. Now, and I know examples are of the ego, and I'm generally not a fan of it, but I do want to give you something. This is like basic physics and science, if you have a science mind. Very simple. When you look at the sun, okay, it takes 8 minutes for the light of the sun to reach the retina of your eye. In that 8 minutes, the sun is actually no longer in the exact same position in the sky as it was when you looked at it. It's already moved on. You're seeing it 8 minutes in the past. Okay, does that make sense? Now, let's look at the big picture. Jesus is already resurrected from time and space 2,000 years ago, as the story goes, roughly. All right, Jesus is already resurrected, which means the idea of death finished 2,000 years ago. All of a sudden, into consciousness came a corruption or an opposite to that idea of death. Believe it, don't believe it, it doesn't really matter. You weren't there, you can't prove whether he did or he didn't. All that you've got in your own mind is speculation, doubt, and possibility, and all of this sort of stuff, right? Which we're exploring now as we undergo our process. But because that's already over, okay, that didn't happen in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago. That happened in mind 2,000 years ago. That happened in whole mind 2,000 years ago, okay? Which means that right now in this incarnation, in your ability to search your mind and meditate through your mind, it's there. It's not something that happened in the past. It's there. There's a thing in your mind that is irrefutably going to show you there is no death. You're literally living in your own resurrection right now. And all you got to do to realize it and experience it and witness to it is be willing to allow that to occur in you without interfering. Right? Which is why we have this mind training telling us our thoughts don't mean anything. Stop using your own stupid, meaningless thoughts to try and guide your meditations, and allow the Holy Spirit just to go pow in your blooming, what do you call this thing, your third eye, and open you up to the entirety of the universe. Because that's what you are. I'm not a body here studying a course. I'm not reading this book, doing these lessons, thinking that it's going to make me a better person. I'm going to achieve salvation someday and this and that and the other. It's already occurred. Everything I see is already in the past and over and done. Okay? Everything I'm saying to you now, everything you're listening to now has already happened in the past. Because time is not linear, it's now. Right? Before the words even leave my lips, They were formed somewhere back here in consciousness. And then the ego picks it up and goes, oh yeah, let's say that. Blah, 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 blah. But it's already happened back here, right? Here on the physical nature, on the screen of the matrix or the illusion, we're living in the belief that it's actually happening here and now, right? That living in the present is actually living in the present. It's not, which is why, you know, in what's the lesson 10:9, where Jesus says, you even try to organize the present as you wish. You can't organize anything. It's already done. The script is already running in the background, and it's like, it's as if somebody's back here somewhere reading it out, going blah, 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 and then you go, oh, blah, 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 blah. Does that make sense? Now, if you could stop reacting to that voice in your mind that tells you what to say, and just go, hey, look, shut up for a second. I don't want to listen to any more of these thoughts. I don't want any of this stuff going on in my mumbo jumbo in my head. I'm refusing to listen to this anymore because I don't believe my thoughts mean anything, actually. Something else can occur. Okay? Stop listening to that little narrator in your head that tells you what to think and what to say, and allow a moment to be opened up in there that has nothing written on it at all. Right? Invite the Holy Spirit to abide with you in that moment, and something mind-blowing is going to happen to you. Right? But for that to occur, you need mind training, because you can't stop yourself thinking. You can't stop that voice in your head by yourself, because the attempt to stop it verifies it. It makes it real to you. Okay? So it's like all these people, I have friends that are like greenies and whatever, and they'll go and do protests and whatever. And I say things to them like, stop trying to protest the old ways that you disagree with and forge the new way. Right? It's like Gandhi would say, be the change that you want to see in the world. Don't fight against the old stuff, because you're just validating it. You're just giving it power, making it stronger by fighting against it. Okay? Stop trying to fight with your ego. Stop trying to look at your thoughts and decide which ones are better than other ones or whatever, because they're all over and done anyway. And it's a great deception. It's a great trick that you've fallen for, that you believe that it's actually current and relevant and contemporary stuff going on in there that could actually help you in somehow with your salvation. It can't. None of it can. Okay? Which is why Jesus says, give up the world and follow me, and lay aside all thoughts of what you think you are, what the world is, and all purposes that you've given everything, and come with wholly empty hands unto your Father. Like a little baby. I know nothing. Like an innocent child. I know nothing. I've spent a lifetime listening to the garbage going on in my head, thinking that maybe there's something in there worth value that I can say in a conversation or help somebody with, or whatever. None of it means anything, right? But it takes like a group of people, right? Jesus had 12 disciples. It takes a group of people, I don't know how many we are here, to suddenly come together, because this is a collaborative venture. It's a venture in unity, in joining, to suddenly make a decision together where two or more join together. That becomes the will of God, okay? Because we're choosing not for separation. We're choosing for wholeness. We're choosing for unity. And we're going to allow together that to be revealed to us, how it is that we can participate in that in a way that benefits the whole, not just our own individual, right? Your own individual atonement, your own individual salvation, that's up to you. But you get to a certain point where you realize, all right, I need to join. I need to be with others in this venture. I need to be in a relationship with another person or another event or something that's going to give me some kind of catalyst or purpose that goes beyond just listening to my thoughts in my head that are already over, so that I can stand with someone else, with another brother in that empty place, and allow the two to become one. Okay? I'm not saying you can't have a light experience by yourself. You can, because Jesus will stand in for the, you know, in the absence of another brother. But in this, look at all of us. Look how beautiful we all are here. We're all like these incredible children that we know this is in our own good somehow. We know that it's a hell of a hard task trying to wrap our heads around it. And yet we turn up again and again and again in our willingness to forgive what never occurred, so that we can get to a point in our own consciousness where suddenly the voice in our head becomes silent, Ah. And the light comes forth like that. The light just pierces through that consciousness and you have an experience. You know, it's beautiful. And that's where we're at. That's what we're headed towards. That's what all of this, that's what this whole book is about. The holy instant. Not working out what the holy instant is, the holy instant. To do that, we've got to get ourselves out of our own way. Right? We've got to stop sabotaging our own best interests, stop thinking we know something about something. I've had people tell me, oh, I know what this course says. I've been doing it 25 years. I still have no clue what it says. And I know that I don't know what it says because I know that it says I'm never going to understand it without a miracle. And if I think I know what a miracle is, that's not a miracle. It's literally a miracle because you can't understand it. You don't know how it happened. Something occurred in my mind that brought about a shift in my consciousness that was so profound. It showed me the nature of life in its reality and in its all-encompassing beauty, and left me hanging by a thread with no clue what to do with that. You know, it was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. It was total. It was a total opening. Right? It was holiness. It was so holy. What do you do with that? You can't describe it. You can't say what holy is. But you can try to get a sense of it. You can try to get a sense that the reason that we're all here on this Zoom meeting is because we have a purpose together that is holy. It's holy. It's not like anything else in the world. As soon as we turn this meeting off and go out into the street, it's not like anything you're going to find out there. There is nothing, literally nothing in the world that is going to fulfill you. Only the recognition of your own holiness. And it has already occurred. Why? Because I see only the past. I see what's already over, right? Because I'm choosing to see what's already over rather than allowing for that light experience that's waiting to just bazoinka me out into the universe to occur. I don't know if that's a real word, but we can edit it in. Bazoinka. So I don't know where to put my book. Hang on. My mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. Pretty obvious. Do I need to explain that one? Do you need anyone need, put your hand up. Anyone need any clarification how your mind's, if you can't see by now that your mind's preoccupied with past thoughts, I don't think this is going to help you. I came to this because I realized my mind was preoccupied with past thoughts. I kept thinking about things that made no sense. It was just ridiculous. I'll be walking down the street, even in conversations with people, I'd be thinking about something that happened yesterday while they're talking to me, and the next thing you know, I haven't heard a thing they've said. You know, oh, I need to buy some milk. Blah, blah, blah. What was that? You know, when you meet someone and they say, oh, hi, I'm John, and then like the meeting goes on for like a minute and then you can't remember their name because you're not really listening. Your mind's preoccupied with past thoughts. 50,000 thoughts a minute or something. Science is, I don't know how they do it. There's this thing that goes like 50,000 thoughts a minute, and out of those 50,000, you're consciously able to become aware of about 60, and out of those 60, you can dwell on, I don't know. There's a hierarchy of thoughts there, you know, but that's an individual thing. But they're always in the past for the same reason that I see only the past, because it's already over. The resurrection's already occurred, and it doesn't matter how much I might think that I want to go out there and save the world and stop the war in Africa, in Russia or whatever, all of that stuff. It's already done. It's already over. My part is to awaken from the dream that it's still occurring now, that I think that there's something actually still going on, despite the appearance of things that tells me that it is actually still going on, right? You have to have an experience, right? If you want an experience, you got to pray. Now, when we do our light meditations, you got to ask for the experience. Asking you shall receive, right? And people say to me all the time, "Oh, I'll see it. I'll believe it when I see it." So it's the other way around. When you'll see it when you believe it. So it's pouring with rain here. Look, I live in the tropics, and this is our monsoon period now. So if the sound's a little bit hissy, it's because of the rain. When we do our light meditations, and we will do one shortly, I just want to read about forgiveness for a second. The idea of letting go of what you think is going on in the meditation is important. Okay, so who was it? Doug, was it you that was asking me about, can I explain about the circle a bit better? Where is he?
Yes, yep, that was me. I'm curious to know about what you mean by the circle.
Okay, so in our very first light meditation, and Tina can tag you in that. I'm sure she'll have it there referenced somewhere. I did do a bit of a preamble about it, but we'll go through it again today. Okay.
Great, thank you.
But and it's important. You kind of have to go through these things again and again and again and again, because the mind just doesn't want to hear this. All right. You walk down the street, and if you said to people walking down your street, "Hey, give up the world and follow me," everyone's just going to look at you like a nutter. Right? Imagine Jesus doing that 2,000 years ago. Give up the world and follow me. You'd be looking at us like, "Oh, that's that guy. Don't worry." You know. So you got to see how it is that your own mind rejects the offering, right? The conscious association you have with the past is the symbolic representation of what the rejection of the offering actually is, right? Now, God is calling to you every single instant of every single day to come home, to awaken. And yet you don't, because you don't want to hear the call. Okay? The most the ego will allow you is to kind of like play at being spiritual, right? Which kind of sucks. But once you realize that, you can do something about it. Once you realize that, it kind of dawns on you that my words, my spiritual beliefs are nothing without experience. I need an experience. I need to pray. I think my little thing's fallen down. I need to pray, and I need to have that experience, because once you have the experience, once you have a revelation or a holy instant that's deep enough or shattering enough to your consciousness that it brings about that shift, you won't ever be confused by anything ever again. You'll never have a problem ever again. You'll never have a need or a lack of anything ever again. Everything will just automatically flow, because you will have switched your mind into the flow. Does that make sense? The ego's always going to want to try to draw you back and attract you back. Whilst you still animate a body, you still need ego, because the body is the symbol of the ego. Although it's helpful in the purpose of salvation to be able to offer our body to God or to the Holy Spirit to be useful as a teacher to help others for a minute. But you'll find, pardon me, you'll find that your desires of the body, your desires for pleasures of the flesh and for particular comfort foods and particular things, they just sort of fade away, right? And I'm not saying you won't have those things and those things won't be in your life, but they won't have the importance that they once had to you, and you won't feel any sense of sacrifice about that. In fact, you'll feel a sense of fulfillment about that, because there comes a kind of like a realization of a kind of an achievement, that actually something is occurring in you that is not what would naturally occur in a human being, in a human association, right? And it's kind of beautiful. And I think it was Greta, my first teacher, used to say to me things like, you've been here 1,000 lifetimes. You've been a black person, a white person, a yellow person. You've been a prostitute, a politician. You've been a criminal. You've been a saint. You've done everything, but you haven't given yourself to God. This is the incarnation. This is the lifetime where you make that decision. This is where it's time you realize within yourself, it's time to get on with the journey of your soul. You've been here. You've done everything. It's like you've been locked in behind Disneyland. You fell asleep on one of the rides and they locked the gates, and you've been in there for a very long period of time. You've gone on all the rides again and again. It's getting boring. And you're realizing, I want something else now because the world doesn't make sense. What's the point in staying here? Jesus is telling me it's not my home. You know, he says it in very, very certain words. This world is not your home. You're not from here. I'm not from here. And where I'm going, you will soon to come. Okay. The journey of the soul is what we're about here. We're improving our record to the point through our forgiveness where we no longer need, albeit illusorily, we no longer need to come back again once entering the bardo to reincarnate to learn lessons. Okay? Because the only lesson we need to learn here is what we are. And that's got to be experience. What am I, Lord? Show me. I want an experience, right? To ask for what you are already isn't really asking. It doesn't come from a sense of lack. It's more of a remembering, right? Help me to remember what it is that I am. I'm done with this world. I need that golden Willy Wonka ticket, which is buried somewhere deep in my mind, that gets me out of this crazy thing and gets me into the chocolate house, because I want to be in the chocolate house, you know? I want to be where everything's beautiful. And you can look at the world and you can say, oh, it's beautiful in Hawaii, or it's beautiful in whatever and whatever, but it's all just lipstick on a skeleton. When you actually see it for what it is and for what it's offering, it's nothing. It's all death. Okay. And then around and around, like Jesus says in the Course, salvation's not real in any way, shape, or form whatsoever. Anyway, if it's useful as a concept, use it. If it's not, don't worry about it. But I think it is useful as a concept. It's always been helpful to me as a kind of motivating factor to, I mean, the idea of, for they have come, what's 10,000 years for they have come? It's like 10,000 years. Is that how many lifetimes I have left? You know, he says that just openly. What's 10,000 years for they have come? He's talking about, you know, the teachers of God. And it's like, well, reincarnation's not true because the world's not true. There is no world. It's all an illusion. Therefore, reincarnation within it must also be illusory. But it sure as hell seems real when you're stuck within it, within the framework of time, one day after another, marking everything by time, looking at your past thoughts to try and work out what your future might be like. It's boring. It's time consuming. It's really, really stressful. And it's like the best thing you can do about, you know, like if you're a good human association, is to go and get some Xanax or whatever the hell it is that people take these days to try and take the edge off. Because it's hard work being a human being. It's all right when you're a little kid, you don't have an ego. And then when you get to about 8, 9, 10 years old, you start to question things. And that's where your ego kicks in. And you're like, but why? And then the world will, you know, like, don't worry about why. Here's a job. Here's some schooling. Go and do this instead of asking why, you know. And then finally you get to middle age, 30, 40 years old, and you go, but why? And refuse to adjust to that question. It's like, no, I'm not going to have any more gifts. I'm not going to be distracted by sparkly things. I want a goddamn answer. Right? And then here we are, boom shankar in the Zoom meeting. So, all right. So I won't do. Oh, I see nothing as it is now. It's because it's always in the past. My thoughts don't mean anything. It's because they're not your real thoughts. Okay, they only have the meaning that you've given them anyway. So just stop listening to them. It's like a bully. The ego's like a bully. As long as you entertain it and as long as you keep listening to it, it's going to keep going. You have to make that decision somewhere. I'm not going to listen to this voice in my head anymore, and I'm going to just repent, which means to turn around. I'm going to repent and I'm going to listen to the Holy Spirit instead. And at first that might be a little difficult to do because the voice is like, it's a very quiet, sort of still voice of certainty. And you're not used to that. You'll feel like it's something else, but eventually you'll cotton on. Eventually you'll sort of like just click and it'll be like, aha, what was that? You know, I heard something. And then you'll like it and you'll want it, aha, more, you know. So, which is how this works. Right. So I want to read what is forgiveness. Now, this is in the workbook. This is the first extended idea about salvation or within salvation in the second chapter or in the second part of the workbook. The first half of the workbook is designed to undo the way you see things now, and the second half is designed to bring about a mindset of vision, okay, which is a perception that transcends the temporal order or transcends the temporal nature of how you think you see things and gives you a new way to look at it. Okay, so we've undone our mind from all the meaninglessness of our meaningless thoughts in the first half of the workbook, and then we have this whole big introductory section after lesson 200. And we get to the first of the explanatory ideas, which is going to precede the lessons, the next few lessons. And this one's what is forgiveness? And I just want to read the first line. Okay. Now, as I was talking before about allowing it to sink in and having that penny drop moment, this is going to bring up great resistance. Travis, you don't need to find it. You can just listen. All right. This is going to bring up great resistance. If it doesn't, you're not really hearing it. All right. And I want it to bring up resistance. We're here because we're chosen to make a journey into fear, not away from it. We're sick of being tired of, afraid of our fears and our things, and we're going to look at them square in the face now. Okay. What is forgiveness? Forgiveness recognizes what you thought your brother did to you has not occurred. That's the first sentence. Okay, yeah, microphone drop. Is that you, Tim? Microphone drop. Forgiveness recognizes that what you thought your brother did to you has not occurred. Now, I don't know about you, but I've had an experience of some pretty shitty brothers in the past. I've been beaten up. I've been run over by a motorcycle. I've had all these things that goes on, and some of them perhaps intentionally, whatever. I've had cancer and all sorts of stuff. And I thought it was done to me. I wanted to be the victim of it. Okay. So this is where we're now going to look at that statement that what I thought my brother did to me has not occurred. And I have a very good friend of mine who's been raped several times by the same person who wouldn't come forward and whatever. And this was a great point of healing for her. I'm not going to mention her name. I don't think there's any need for that. But this was a great point of healing for her. And also other, I mean, you only got to look at the horrors of the world to realize that if it's not you in a physical sense, someone's going through that. Someone's going through that shit. Okay. One of the biggest catalysts in this for me was in the 80s. I don't know anyone who's as old as me, but the Aid for Africa, right? The Bob Geldof initiative, Live Aid, We Are the World, all of that. And those endless commercials and pictures on our televisions of little African kids with their bellies distended out because they're malnutrition. And the one that really got me was one with Bob Geldof's wife. I can't remember her name, not Peaches, that was his daughter. But anyway, standing with a woman whose baby had just died because she had no breast milk. She was so malnourished herself, she couldn't feed her child. And man, I could not eat the food on my plate. Literally. I could not watch one of those commercials and eat the food on my plate. And I thought something was going on to somebody, right? And in my own particular association, I had things going on to me that, why are people cheating on me, and why are people beating me up, and why are people doing things to me and stealing from me, and why, wanting to be the victim. And it's going to sound really harsh to want to reference that situation in Africa because it's a famine, right? Along with all the other references, okay, which seem to be less harsh than that. But one is the same as any other. If you don't nip it in the bud in one, it's going to keep steamrolling like a snowball and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And your next incarnation, you're going to be in Africa, right? Time and space is all at random. You don't know where you're going to pop up next. You have no clue. Just because you seem to have a reasonably comfortable time of it in this life and you've got electricity and running water doesn't mean that's going to be the same for you in the next one. It just means that you're going to pick up where you left off as an idea of your temporal, what would you call it, progress, which is why, you'll see such seeming unfair things happen to children. But that idea that what I think my brother did to me has not occurred, you're never going to believe that without an experience, because it's only the experience, and this whole course is about the experience. It's only the experience that's going to validate the contextual nature of the course to you, right? Which is why you can't understand it with your conceptual mind. You can look at it reasonably, you can entertain it reasonably, you can apply the principles reasonably and everything reasonably, and take it on board that perhaps Jesus did channel this course, and perhaps Helen wasn't just some nutcase psychologist that wrote this and now we're all confused by it. All of these sorts of things that'll go on in your head. But until you have the experience, you're going to believe that what someone did to you, you think they did to you. All right? Don't try to use a spiritual concept to get out of that situation. Don't try to fob it off with, oh, there is no world. It's okay. No one really did anything to me. No, sit where you think it happened. Sit in your own mind where your vulnerability and your openness crushes you, where it's just like the pain is present, okay? Because it is real to you. It does seem real. And to try and deny the world whilst you seem to find yourself in it is a particularly unworthy form of denial, okay? Now, Jesus is saying that forgiveness shows me and lets me know that what I think occurred to me didn't occur, but that doesn't mean that I think it didn't occur. To me, it's damn real and, it occurs. And that's all there is to it. It's going to take a miracle for that idea of forgiveness to find root in me as a seed that has now been planted. Okay? So Jesus is planting that seed in my mind that what I think occurred hasn't occurred, no matter how bad it seems or no matter how good it seems, actually. Right? For me to water that seed and nurture that seed, I have to be willing to take it on faith that he's right about that and I'm wrong about that, despite my assertions and my determinations to want to have my say about being a victim, okay, or about being someone who suffered at the hands of someone else or some other situation, whether a natural calamity or a man-made one, okay? It's important. It's important that your feet are on the ground. It's important that you stay grounded, because one of the things that the ego loves to do with this book is to say, oh, I get it now, there is no world, and wander around the place as if there is no world, yet not having had an experience, okay, which is what Jesus calls the unhealed healer. Concepts are nothing, experience is everything. When you have the experience, sure, you're going to cry like a baby, because you're going to realize you were responsible for what happened to you. You're going to realize it was your choice to buy into the drama of separation and thereby experience whatever it is individually your karmic imprint brings to you that you manifest, okay? Whether that's abuse, rape, war, disease, it doesn't matter. Look at the world without the blinkers on, and whatever can possibly happen out there can possibly happen. Right? And you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, just as you didn't know what was going to happen yesterday happened yesterday. Okay? So it's important to actually be present, to be focused, and to be aware of the fact of how you actually feel, despite the fact that Jesus is telling you that you have no grounds for holding a grievance. Because that's true. There is no world is the truth. But the means are needed to reach that experientially. The means are needed, and these are the means. Okay, these 365 lessons, this coming together that we're sharing in, these are the means by which we take our miscreative perception of the universe where we manifest all kinds of tragic shit and come together to do something about that, learning to make a new choice together for peace and for love and for happiness and for the healing of that through forgiveness, as Jesus says forgiveness is, not as we think forgiveness ought to be or should look like. That person doesn't deserve forgiveness, but because I'm the better one, I'll forgive. That's not forgiveness. That's not forgiveness. Forgiveness sees that what you think your brother did to you has not occurred. Now, how the hell do I get to that point? How am I ever going to get to that point? Has Jesus gone mad? Or am I just not becoming dependent upon the miracle to show me that my thinking is completely insane? Right? I'm never going to be the one that wants to think my thinking is completely insane, because to me it makes sense, because I don't have another reference point to show me that it's insane. I don't have any other reference. Well, I do. I've already been outside of time and space. But if you're still pursuing that experience, if you're still pursuing your enlightenment, you only have the one reference point for everything. And that's this self, the physical self. It's the dreamer of the dream. It's the central figure in everything that seems to occur to you. You don't have another reference point other than that, which is why you need an experience, right? Experience, 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 which brings us to our healing, which brings us now, Doug, to our circle, to our light meditation, to our light experience that we have come here to have. Right now, I want to talk about Dr. Fritz for a second. And you'll be like, what? Who? And you may have heard of John of God in South America, where faith healer, right? So there's John of God, and people go on these busloads, thousands of Westerners go to see John of God to be cured of cancer and all this sort of stuff. And some are, some aren't. And but to the people in South America, he's their faith healer. They don't have massive medical infrastructure or nothing. All they got is faith. Right? We can just go down to the doctor and get a prescription. They can't do that in many countries and villages and throughout some parts of the world. And so a faith healer is what they've got, right? All of a sudden, we get a cancer or we get something that we can't cure with our fancy medical stuff, and we automatically start to panic and look at, well, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? And then someone says, John of God or another faith healer. And we look at that and we go, oh, look, this guy's healing people from cancer. I'm going, because you've got nothing to lose. Why wouldn't you? Right? So there was another guy in South America called Dr. Fritz. I forget the guy's name that used to channel him. And he would probably know. But a bunch of the guys from Wisconsin went over to South America to see Dr. Fritz. And I watched a video along with everybody about him. And I'm going to get to the reason I'm telling you this story in a second. I watched a video of Dr. Fritz, and people would queue up, right? And there was all sorts of things going on. There was little kids with ailments and old people, and everybody queue up. And before you could see him, you had to go through this kind of indoctrination period where the guides that were operating that day before you got to see Dr. Fritz would talk to you about forgiveness. They would talk to you about healing, spiritual healing. They would talk to you about all sorts of things. So whether you had any kind of belief in God or not, they would make sure that you understood what was happening when you went in there. Because if you didn't, all that would occur is that you would, even if you were healed, you would remanifest another ailment later on down the track, because your mind is still working in the same miscreative way. Okay. Now, we have this to help our minds not continue in that miscreative way. Does that make sense? This is mind training. so that when we have a miracle, we're not going to corrupt it with our pointy little conceptual brains and bring about yet another horrific situation that we have to be rescued from. Okay, that wouldn't be very helpful. It's like that old saying, if you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. If you teach a man to fish, he'll eat forever. Okay, so it's important that we have our mind training sort of like down pat. Now, Doug, with our circle, what happens is initially, and I'm just going to throw a figure out here, right? It's don't quote me on it. It's not accurate or anything by any means. But I'm going to tell you that if you are doing the workbook lessons, by the time you get to like lesson 100, if you've done it diligently, if it's all you've done, if it's your heart and soul, right, you should have already had a shift, right? Now, because like I said before on that path, some are at the front, some are at the back, everyone's at where they're at. Don't quote me on that being lesson 100. Okay, I had a shift on lesson 12, right? I had another shift on, can't remember what lesson it was, but I've had several shifts that goes on, usually spontaneously. I haven't actually tried to orchestrate them or anything. They just occur. And it's like, how did that happen? It was a miracle, right? So when you reach a certain level of maturity in this, when this becomes the thing that occupies your mind, that you realize is your highest purpose, your only real thing that you're here on earth to do, right? Then something starts to occur in you that brings you to a crescendo. I don't know how to describe that. It brings you to a point of wanting to know the truth, right? You want an experience. It's just like you can sit here and I can tell you 1,000 times you need to have an experience, but until you actually want it, until it's no longer my words, but your words, right? Then it's kind of like, I don't like that terminology, fake it till you make it, but it is kind of like that. You just keep going until you get to that point, right? So it's like when you have a bad habit and you're sick of it and people are always calling you out on it. It's not until you're actually sick of it and tired of it, they're actually going to do something about it. I want to stop drinking. I want to stop drinking. I hate drinking. I'm never drinking again. It's not until you actually stop drinking that something else can happen. Okay. So this is very much like that. It's not until you get to a certain point where you realize that you don't have any other option really other than this. Because other than this is death. It's death or salvation, death or salvation, death or salvation. Choose, right? In every moment, choose. Now, at a certain point, the necessity to ask you, to continue to ask you through cause and effect relationship cataclysms is going to fall away, because you're just going to accept for yourself that you don't need to choose anymore. You've chosen life. You've chosen salvation. There's nothing in the world you want. There's nothing out there attracting you particularly anymore, and you're done with it. And you kind of know it. It's not like there's any kind of like, well, let me just look at that, you know. There's none of that. You're done with it, and you know you're down with Jesus. He's your homie, and whatever it is that you need to do, you're doing it, because it's time to get the hell out of here. Right? It's time to get on with the journey of the soul, release the inner light, allow the body to go, and then next. Okay. Now, when you get to that point, and when we do our light meditations, you'll easily enter into the experience. Like that, right? When I open my mind, right, and this has taken some years to come about. I can't explain it to you, but you'll feel a little kind of, a little shift, a little something happens when you meditate, right? When I open my mind, that used to take hours. I used to sit for hours sometimes in silence and meditating, and things would annoy me, and I'd focus and come back and back and back and back until I became to a certain point wherein I was so frustrated at not being any good at meditating that I suddenly started meditating, right? It wasn't that anyone taught me or that I knew how to do it or anything. It's just I got sick and tired of having no result or being constantly distracted. The penny dropped that I was done with that, and something else happened, right? Now, when I open my mind now, I get a flash of light, I feel instantly renewed and invigorated, and I can transfer that light to anyone who's within a certain kind of vibratory frequency of me that can receive it at that level. All right. In the Course, Jesus says to you, if you're afraid of your healing, it's going to have to wait until finally you've gone through enough stuff that you can realize that there's nothing to be afraid of. Right. We always come to our healing afraid because it's a journey into fear, right? Not a journey away from it. So we're always like the rabbit in the headlights, right? At a certain point, something occurs in your mind. You go, fuck it, I don't care about the headlights. I'm just going to sit here. And even if the car runs over me, I'm not jumping. I'm not moving. I'm not budging. I'm just going to stay here. And those lights are going to get closer and closer and closer. And whatever I think is going to happen, if that happens, great. If it doesn't happen, great. Right? But you reach a certain point where you just don't know until it happens. Okay. When we do our light meditation, we enter in together, we join together, we make a decision. I'm going to step into this circle, right? And I'm calling it a circle. It really doesn't matter if it's a square or a whatever, or a box, but I'm going to enter into this frame of mind, into this decision with you, Doug, and everyone else here, right? To not adjust to whatever goes on for us in the next moment. Okay. I may feel emotional. Something might have happened to me today. But I'm going to try and leave this moment open. I'm going to try and leave this moment open. I'm going to keep my heart as vulnerable as I can. I'm going to allow whatever needs to occur to occur. And I'm going to refuse to adjust to it. If the doorbell rings, I'm not going to answer it. If the telephone goes, I'm not going to answer it. If the kids are puking in the bloody kitchen, I'm not going to attend to it. I'm going to stay here, and no matter what it takes, I'm going to undergo whatever my own individual contribution to this circle necessitates of me. Okay. Now, for some of you, that's going to look perhaps like going down into some deep, dark emotional hole, and so be it. That's fine. For some of you, you may just burst out into spontaneous joy and light and have all sorts of things goes on, like Donna. So be it, right? It doesn't matter. I don't care if you step into the circle and have an experience of something horrific or something awesome, as long as it's different. Okay, as long as it's a change from the way when you step in there, because change is what we're about. All right. Sometimes you've got to go down into that basement, unpack some of those boxes of old memories and resentments and grievances, and bring them back up to the light. All right. If you got to do that, you got to do that. Right. And I'll tell you and be like, Doug, go and look at that shit. Okay. Stop trying to get high on the light without doing the work, because the work is healing. The work is getting down there, finding those grievances. Like Jesus says, seek for your blocks and find them. All right. You got to seek for those blocks. If I said to you, think of someone that pisses you off, everybody already has someone. Okay. That's going to be the object of your forgiveness. That person that you think pisses you off never did anything to you. You're pissing yourself off because you've given your thoughts about that person all the meaning that they have. That person probably has no clue what's going on in your head. I've asked that person to be a horrible ex-husband or ex-wife. I've asked that person to, that's part of my script of separation. Separation is pain, suffering, and death. Why would I be surprised to discover that when it starts to happen to me? Okay. All of a sudden, no, that was a bad idea. I don't like that idea of pain, suffering, and death anymore. I'm going to choose salvation. But you have to give your mind back to God as it was given to you, pure. Okay. So we go down into the basement. We look at those boxes marked grievance, marked judgment, marked never trust this person again, marked you did this to me. We look at whatever's down there. Okay. Or up there, however it is that you find things in your mind, right? We take it on board in our willingness to look at it for a second with the Holy Spirit so that it can be purified. It can be healed through our willingness to forgive ourselves for that old script that we knew not what we were writing. right? So Jesus on the cross, forgive them, Lord. They know not what they do. Okay. You didn't know what you were doing when you thought separation would be a fun idea. You had no clue. If you want to look at it biblically, Satan went, hey, come and have a beer with me. And you're like, well, hang on, I just need to, I'm not supposed to be here creating. And you're like, no, you'll be right. Come with me. And you're like, oh, okay then. All right. And the next thing you know, you're drunk. Next thing you know, you've slipped and bumped your head and you're in this dream and you don't know how to get out. That's a pretty bad analogy, but anyway, you get the idea. All right. So in our circle, we be still and we wait in the stillness of our mind. If thoughts come in to distract us, we let them go. We acknowledge they're there. Yep, okay, that's kids screaming, yelling, whatever. Let that go. Right. Other stuff, let that go. And then if your integrity or your honesty about being in the healing circle is true for you, you'll find stuff that needs forgiveness. Okay. If there was nothing left in you to forgive, you wouldn't be here. You literally would not be able to maintain the body. There'd be no purpose for it. You'd have no lessons to learn. Right? It wouldn't make sense for you to have to still be here. Unless you're an idiot like me and chose to come back. Anissa, I love you guys. So when we enter into our circle, try to feel it, okay? Try to get a sense of it. Try to get a sense of what it is that you're trying to do as an act of holiness, as an act of surrender, as an act of giving unconditionally, open slather, open market to the Holy Spirit in your thoughts, in your mind, to show you where it is healing is required. If it was left up to you, you'd offer just like a little bit of the cheese, but you got to get the whole wheel, the whole Gouda, the whole thing going on here. And the Holy Spirit knows how much you can take, right? The Holy Spirit knows perfectly well what you're capable of releasing. If you look at everything as an idea of energy, right? You might be a second incarnation being. You're not going to want to give up too much because you're not really done with the world. If you've been here for 100 lifetimes, you'll be like, just take all of it. I don't care anymore. I'm just done, right? I've had it. Get me the hell out of here, right? But whatever it is that you can or are capable of, and because remember, the body is a defense against the truth. It represents the defense against the truth. Whatever you can take as an idea of heal the mind and the body will follow, that will occur for you. Okay. But I'm always going to encourage you to stay in the circle for as long as you can, even if you find that point, that what would you call it? That threshold point where you seem to feel like you're being sucked out of your body or seem to being sucked into the void, into the nothingness, right? Now that can be terrifying, but that's the whole point of what we're doing. I want to go into that void. I want to go into that void. There's no real void in God, but in my own mind, there's an idea of nothingness or the abyss or total desolation or whatever, right? So that's terrifying. It's talked about in the Course as a tiny moment of terror, right? Now, in the moment you recognize it, you'll feel like that you're being sucked out of your body, right? Now, Donna, was that you that in our first one, you had that? Right, good. Okay, now the natural tendency, because the ego adjusts to everything it doesn't like, the natural tendency is to want to adjust to it. Ooh, don't like that, I'll go and make a cup of tea, right? Or something, right? All I'm ever going to tell you is don't adjust. Resist not evil, okay? Do not adjust to your pain, whether you're in the shopping center, whether you're sitting at home in a quiet meditative moment, whatever. Look for that block, right? You put it there in the first place, so you can just as easily allow yourself to have it removed. It's only got the value you've already given it, right? You've given it that value. You can take it back despite how scary it might seem, right? It's not greater than you. It's not more powerful than you, but you've become accustomed to living in a comfort zone where you don't have to face sheer terror, right? The ego's become very good at making this little tiny bandwidth of consciousness that you can exist in where You don't have to go up too high and be exalted in some kind of euphoric bliss all the time, and where you don't have to go down too deep. But if you've ever had a mental snap, you know that it's very easy to go down too deep. And you can swing like a pendulum from one thing, you know, they call that bipolar or whatever. It's like, it's not, no one's ever bipolar. But it's like, that's the nature of ego mind, right? So we're going to be still. We're going to enter into our meditation in a moment. We're going to be still. And I'm going to just give you some prompts, okay, some little guided whatever, to try and put you into a sense of purpose. And it's going to be up to you whether you want to buy into that or not, or whether you just want to go with your own thing. I know some of you guys can just take this and run because you sort of like got the hang of it. But if you're new at it, maybe a little guidance and a little sort of guided meditative thing might be helpful, right? But overall, don't listen to my voice. You'll hear it if you're meant to hear it, right? But overall, try to feel, right? And I'm going to start by telling you that I want you to try and feel the pain of the world. All right. I want you to feel the sorrow, the suffering, and everything else like that, because that's more honest. Okay. We all have a reference point for those emotions, for those feelings, for those thoughts that manifest that emotionality in us. Right? This is a safe circle. It's okay to do this here. Okay. And then from there, that'll be your own sort of like whatever, wherever you go from there, that's fine.